Good evening. Welcome to Washington. I'm Brett Baer in for Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Let's get right to our top story. Donald Trump's make or break immigration speech in Arizona tomorrow night, and the state of the presidential race right now. Speculation is rampant over whether Trump will announce a major policy shift on how to deal with illegal immigration following more than a week of hints that his stance or his tone is shifting. Joining us now from New York with a preview of those remarks, Trump campaign manager Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, thanks for being here.
Hi, Brett. Thanks for having me.
Now, I want to start with where this race is right now. Where do you see it? I hear from a lot of Trump supporters who don't buy the polls. They don't think that he's trailing, even though it has gotten tighter nationally. Where do you see the race now in those important battleground states?
Sure. So, Brett, like 3 weeks ago, all the pundits and reporters were saying, look at the polls, race over, he can't recover. And now that the polls are tightening, particularly in states like North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, we see these tightening of these races in these swing states that they don't want to talk about the polls. They sort of want to talk about the weather and the back to school sales. And I think that tells you something. What we see in the polls, Emerson College released several battleground polls over the last day or so. And we see us within the margin of error in each of those states, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania. And in those states, which I think is incredibly important, is that we are leading Hillary Clinton among independents in each of those 3 states. And according to the Emerson College poll in Ohio, we are leading Hillary Clinton by 17 points among independents in the make or break state of Ohio. So we're really thrilled with our message. Mr. Trump is still seen as the outsider, the disruptor. He's going to shake up Washington. And we like our strategy, which is to take the case directly to the people. People can actually listen to his policy proposals now. They don't need to wait for these 90-minute or 2-hour presidential debates to know what he would do as president. He's given major speeches just in the last 2 weeks on law enforcement, on defeating radical Islamic terrorism, on the how to help the communities of color. He's given a speech tomorrow on immigration. So people can at least examine. I mean, too often politicians do the sound bites now, specifics to be named at a date in the future. And Brett, we really like our strategy compared to Hillary Clinton's strategy, which is she gave one speech last week and it was about Donald Trump. He gives speeches about the issues. So when you look at these polls, the number that I think we should all watch is Hillary Clinton's number sort of flatlines. She's at 43, 45, 48, 46. She's really at 50% in none of these new swing state polls. And in the morning consult poll that was released on Sunday, Brett, it showed her lead nationally cut from 6 points to 3 points. And most startlingly, in the morning consult poll released Sunday, she had 44% of the female vote, 44% of American women saying they're going to vote for the first female president. I think Hillary has a Hillary problem.
Right. So you're a pollster. Do you buy this hidden Trump voter that is not being picked up by the polls? You pointed to battleground states that are within the margin of error, but is there a battleground state where Donald Trump is leading currently?
So he is such an unconventional candidate that I think conventional polling may not capture the depth and the breadth of the enthusiasm for his support. So there has been data revealed, there have been projects done, undercover Trump voters, and even those who begrudgingly admit that there may be a hidden Trump voter, that people just aren't admitting they're voting for him, or folks that usually vote Democratic, or frankly, Brett, don't vote at all, or have been lapsed voters and have missed quite a few cycles but feel inspired about his outsider candidacy and his message, they would not be on a normal list of voters. And if you're only using a list of actual voters from past elections, you're missing a swath of the electorate, particularly in some of these swing states, who may be either first-time voters or have been long-time non-voters who want to come back into the fold. And let's be frank, I don't think you're going to find a single hidden Hillary Clinton voter in this entire country. If anything, Bill Clinton's wife, Barack Obama's successor, first woman, she seems to get quite a lift in the polls from those unique characteristics, and yet she just can't put him away. I think that the scarcity that is their strategy is a mistake. She should be out there campaigning and giving policy speeches, because what do voters tell the Fox News pollsters and all pollsters? I want to hear about jobs and the economy. I want to hear about terrorism and healthcare and energy and infrastructure and immigration. We're the ones taking the case right to the voters.
And I want to talk about that immigration speech coming up tomorrow, but in a sentence, would you say he is trailing, closing the gap, on the move? In a sentence of where you put this race right now.
Closing the gap and on the move, and recognizing that some of Hillary Clinton's fundamental character flaws, as reflected in the polls, are not changing at all. You have the same numbers, in some polls worse, than even 2 months ago in terms of her likability and her trustworthiness. And Brett, it's been so long that 66% or so of Americans have said they don't trust her, 50-some% they don't much like her, that I think we've all become inured to that. Oh, sure, people don't trust her, don't like her, but who's to say that voters are saying but after they say, I don't like you and I don't trust you? They may be saying, and I can't see myself voting for you, and I just can't bring myself to go for another typical politician and insider. So one thing I feel really good about are those fundamental character numbers for Hillary Clinton that aren't budging.
Will there be a shift, Kellyanne, in immigration policy from Donald Trump? We've heard him talk about it different ways, and you have to concede that. Will there be a shift tomorrow in actual policy in what he's talked about?
You'll hear a consistent Donald Trump in this way. No amnesty, no legalization, no sanctuary cities. So these parents, these angel moms and dad that we have seen up on the stage with him, and let me give you some names, Laura and Michelle and Jamil and Agnes and Julie. These are real people whose children were killed by illegal immigrants who should not have been here. Kate Steinle, no more sanctuary cities. Also, we want to be fair to the American worker. There are lots of folks feeling that they're competing directly with illegal immigrants as well as people abroad for these jobs now. And we also want to be, as he has said, when dealing with the 11 million or so, he wants to abide the law, enforce the law, which is a novel concept in Washington. Usually we layer laws on top of each other rather than enforcing the ones that we have. People who have committed a crime are gone. And then he wants to see what we're left with. Is it 5 million? Is it 11 million? Is it 30 million? And he would like to, he will address that tomorrow, and I think you will see one of the toughest speeches on illegal immigration in modern political history, and give him credit where it's due, please, Brett, and your viewers, which is he is actually putting these policies out now long before Election Day so that people can at least examine them and see how they match up with their own concerns.
And I've heard you say, listen to the speech. You're not going to go into whether the 11 million and how it's going to happen. And I've also heard you say that he didn't talk about a deportation force on the RNC speech. I want to ask you quickly about debate prep. Is he prepping in a policy way to go up against Hillary Clinton and all that you're hearing that she's doing to prep for debates? Absolutely,
Brett. I can assure you that every day he is talking about policy, reading on policy, discussing policy with other experts, and that, I mean, we feel like one piece of our debate prep is going out there and giving these speeches. These are his speeches. He helps to write his speech. These are his final words. This is his campaign. He's the face of the campaign. And so when you are actually laying out your plan, you're ready for the debate. Look, I understand. I completely sympathize why Team Clinton is cramming her head with binders and of facts and getting the Hollywood folks, and now somebody wrote a book about Donald Trump 1,000 years ago to consult with her. But what is she so afraid of? Why not just go and debate Donald Trump on the issues? I'll tell you why. The issue set favors Donald Trump. Americans are dissatisfied with Obamacare. They're worried about economic security. They don't like the fact that she refers to ISIS as our, quote, determined enemies rather than savage murderers. They really want to talk about energy and infrastructure and education. And so we are out there doing that, and we'll continue to do that. That's part of the prep. And then there's a lot of other things that I don't discuss publicly, but we feel very comfortable. And in fact, we're really excited about debate season.
Kellyanne, thank you. We'll be tuning into the speech tomorrow night. Up next, reaction to our interview with Kellyanne Conway from the other side of the political fence. And later, did Secretary of State John Kerry really say that the media should stop covering terrorist attacks? Charles Krauthammer will be here to analyze that coming up. In the Impact segment tonight, reaction to our interview with Trump campaign manager Kellyanne Conway. Joining us now, Democratic strategist Richard Goodstein. Richard, thanks for being here. First, on the issue of immigration and this speech tomorrow, do you sense that there is a change of Donald Trump, a different pitch that is trying to go after moderate and independent voters?
Well, how could you not, on one hand, think that they're still not sure where they are, considering literally within the past week, we've heard terms like softening and hardening and humane and baby steps. And look, this was his signature issue. I think he's going to double down. He's going to basically say, we want them all out. He's probably going to equivocate on exactly how soon, even though what he said was immediate. Now it's humane. I think this plays directly into Hillary Clinton's fundamental message, which is that Donald Trump is not equipped to be commander-in-chief. If Donald Jr. today said, well, look, he's reaching out to people to have a conversation, is that how he's going to make decisions? Have Sean Hannity convene a town hall and ask people and say, well, I guess we're going to bomb North Korea? I just think this is a gift to the Clinton campaign.
What about the other thing Kellyanne pointed out was the honest and trustworthy numbers for Hillary Clinton? Today you have the New York Times editorial board saying that she has to cut ties with the Clinton Foundation because it's hurting her campaign.
Right.
Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think it's easier said than done. I hope this, in some respects, this campaign uses the two foundations, the Trump Foundation and the Clinton Foundation, as a litmus test. The Clinton Foundation, AIDS relief, malaria, climate change, childhood obesity, women's empowerment.
We're saying they're doing good things,
okay,
but this is the New York Times editorial board.
Well, I'm just saying, what they don't take into account is the fact that there are people getting life-saving medications out there that you can't, look, the Clinton Foundation is a different model. They're actually sending people in the field and delivering malaria and HIV/AIDS medication.
Let's stipulate, Richard, that they're doing great things around the world. Let's just stipulate that. But the actual drip of the emails and the interaction of her work at State and the Clinton Foundation, that is hurting, not from Fox News, from the New York Times editorial board.
Right, and I think the New York Times editorial board misapprehends. They're smart people, but I don't think they quite understand. First of all, I think they're jumping to conclusions about, Doug Bann was wearing a lot of different hats. So to say that every single email from him to the State Department was the Clinton Foundation speaking, to say get the head of the Rockefeller Foundation, as if somehow or other this person was otherwise not worthy to be seated at a table with somebody important. I just think that they're kind of missing the boat.
All right. The other element of this, though, is that we've heard from Hillary Clinton numerous times that she turned everything over. Now we hear every day that there's another batch of Clinton Foundation emails. Today there was, the State Department confirmed, Benghazi emails in the deleted emails. Here's Hillary Clinton over the months saying what she turned over.
We turned over everything that was work-related, every single thing. Personal stuff, we did not. And all I can tell you is that I turned over every work-related email in my possession. What we turned over were more than 30,000 emails that I assumed were already in the government system, Brett, because they were sent to state.gov addresses.
Sure, but there were some that were just recently discovered and turned over.
No, that was in the State Department, not in me.
Okay.
I've turned over everything.
Let me just.
My emails are so boring.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm embarrassed about that. They're so boring. And so we've already released, I don't know, 30,000 plus. So what's a few more?
Oh, there are thousands more, and clearly, Richard, they're not personal. So that was not true.
Well, the fact of the matter is, the Justice Department, the FBI looked at this, right? We don't think that they had access to everything, and if they saw something that was troublesome, they would. Look, the way I think this, if you want to make emails a central component of this campaign, again, Republicans said about Donald Trump, he's a racist, bigot, xenophobe, misogynist, and a con artist, and Hillary Clinton overlooked two small, lowercase c's in parentheses that didn't belong there.
Time out. She said she turned everything over, and we are getting thousands of emails that are tied to the Clinton Foundation, Benghazi, and they're not personal. It is not yoga and wedding planning.
But Benghazi has been investigated by countless committees.
I'm just talking about the emails.
Yeah.
You have to concede what she said there is not true.
I don't think we know, frankly. Well, let's wait and see what it is that people are talking about, because I think these rumors are kind of overtaking reality, okay? And think about, if you go back to some of the talk that was on various networks 6 or 8 months ago about what was going to happen, the inevitability of Hillary Clinton getting indicted, well, it didn't happen. I know people are disappointed, it just didn't happen.
Last thing quickly, you see this race right now, 5-6 points with her in the lead?
Right, and I'm convinced that Donald Trump listens to Kellyanne Conway and says how it's closing and tight and everything, and all the other surrogates as well, and that's one of the single best assets that Hillary Clinton has going for it, because I think that's kind of unconnected to reality.
Richard, we appreciate you coming in.
My pleasure.
Next up on the rundown, Secretary of State John Kerry says the media should stop covering terrorist attacks. Charles Krauthammer with some strong thoughts on that. when we come right back. After remarks to reporters in Bangladesh yesterday, Secretary Kerry saying, quote, "If you decide one day you're going to be a terrorist and you're willing to kill yourself, you can go out and kill some people. You can make some noise. Perhaps the media would do us all a service if they didn't cover it quite as much. People wouldn't know what's going on." That statement is causing, as you might imagine, quite a bit of a reaction. Joining us now with his take, syndicated columnist and Fox News contributor Charles Krauthammer. Charles, set looks a little different than usual in the O'Reilly setup.
But apparently there's no spin here either.
No spin here. Your thoughts on Secretary Kerry?
Look, if you're living in an alternate reality, you want other people to come and join you. And it's clear that he and his boss, the president, have this view, especially the president. He said it openly, that the media, the public, exaggerates the importance of terrorism. He said once, Obama said, if it leads, it bleeds. The media love it. It's good ratings, but it's completely out of proportion to the threat to the country. It's not existential. It's not world historical. Obama sees it essentially as a geopolitical nuisance, and he wants to treat it that way. The problem is that it kills a lot of people. Obama says more people die in accidents in bathtubs. Well, bathtubs don't shout Allahu Akbar when they kill you, and they aren't trying to kill you. There's a big difference. This is a nemesis out there, and the idea that if you just don't cover it, if you hide it and you pretend it doesn't happen, it will go away, and you will assuage the anxieties of the people in the West is simply silly. And I think it was a ridiculous thing to say. But then again, he does travel a lot, and you get a lot of jet lag.
Let me push devil's advocate from the administration point of view. By giving it so much attention, by giving it so much credence that it is affecting the nation, then you are, in their mind, empowering these organizations that otherwise would not be as powerful.
Look, it has already changed our lives. When you go to an airport today compared to 50 years ago, it's a completely different experience. Every government building in Washington is essentially an armed camp. There are people everywhere. We didn't have that even 30 years ago. Of course, it's changed our lives. We've had to adapt to it. And part of it is being willing to see the reality. It is true that it is not at the level of, Pearl Harbor, but that's not what we're comparing it to. We haven't had a hot war of that kind, great power against other great power, in 70 years. With nuclear weapons, we probably never will. This is the kind of warfare that we are engaged in, and it simply destroys the confidence of the people in the leadership if you try to pretend it's not as real and deadly as it is.
Let's turn to the presidential election. The New York Times editorial board comes out with this editorial about the Clinton Foundation and Secretary Clinton's ties to it, saying they have to be separated in order for her to succeed because it's getting bad, essentially. It doesn't look good, and it's not good, in their words.
Look, the main defense of the Clintons from the beginning of this email scandal, more than a year ago, has always been there's no there there. There's nothing here. Just walk on by. There were no classified information. There was nothing illegal, nothing irregular, etc. When you get the New York Times editorial page, which is essentially your last line of defense, saying you can't use that anymore. There are other defenses you can say. Perhaps we were careless. Perhaps we didn't give enough attention. Perhaps we should be looking at perception as well as reality. There are other lines of defenses. I think they're unconvincing. But you can't keep saying there's nothing here. And that's what this has done. When the Times says your biggest supporter, in the end they're going to be with you, they say that you have to admit there is something not quite right about the relationship. As they put it, where does the Clinton Foundation and State Department begin? When that's a question raised by the Times, then there's a problem. They cannot walk away from this. And not only will this haunt them until November, this is going to haunt them into, if Hillary wins, Clinton administration. This is not going to be like Whitewater. It's going to It may not end the way Watergate did, But this is not going to stop, and it can escalate into her presidency, and it could be a cancer on her presidency.
If she wins, you hear the surrogates say, listen, the Clinton Foundation does great things around the world. It shouldn't be stopped from doing those great things. That is the retort. You just heard it a few moments ago. But what's left out of those responses is the tie to the President Clinton's speeches and to the interaction between her time at State and the foundation itself.
However good the good that was done, and on the scale of how much money went into it, I'm not sure it compares with any of the great charities like the Gates Foundation, Rockefeller, and the ones that have preceded it. However much good it did, it was a corrupt operation. It was a holding operation for Clinton loyalists, and it was a way for people to buy access. Yes, it has not yet been shown, perhaps it won't be, that there was an actual quid pro quo, which is essentially bribery. But nonetheless, the selling of access is obvious and known. What scale it was, we don't know. But the reason that Democrats are so scared about this is because there's stuff out there, thousands of emails, and they don't know what's in it. Perhaps Hillary does, and she has a poker face and pretends there's nothing there. I give her credit for that kind of steely nerviness. But nonetheless, no one knows what's in there. And all you need are one or two gifts given in return, and it could be a calamity for them.
Charles, as always, thank you.
My pleasure.
Coming up, Donald Trump wasting no time to make the new Anthony Weiner sexting scandal a campaign issue. So is that fair play? That debate in a moment. Of top Hillary Clinton aide Uma Abedin. Abedin announced yesterday that she is separating from Weiner following news of his latest scandal. And Donald Trump wasted little time jumping on this story.
But in the case of Anthony Weiner, she's married to a guy that is uncontrolled and uncontrollable. He's a sick person. And, you know, she has access to classified information. Uma Abedin has access to classified information. How Hillary got away with that one, nobody will ever know. But to think that it's very likely that much of this information Anthony Weiner would know about.
The Clinton campaign responding to the charge this way.
To the substance of what Donald Trump said, it's another one of the outlandish things this man tosses about. And he repeated it. It's the kind of thing he did this weekend when he tweeted an incredibly insensitive tweet after a woman was shot on the streets of Chicago. Dwayne Wade's cousin. And he tries to take credit for these things. He did it after Orlando. He did it after this tragedy in Chicago last week. This is what he does. He thinks everything is about him, his political opportunism. It shows why the man is temperamentally unfit to be president of the United States.
Joining us now with reaction from New York, Juan Williams, Fox News political analyst and co-host of The Five. And here in Washington, Lisa Booth, contributor for the Washington Examiner. All right, Juan, let's start with you. Your thoughts on the Anthony Weiner remarks by Donald Trump and whether that's fair game.
I don't think it's fair game. This has really everything to do with the power of damage to a family, a child involved in one of the pictures that Weiner was texting. It's pretty disparaging to him, and it's damaging to his family. It's a family falling apart, Brett. I think it also has to do with the power of sort of texting and sending nude pictures of yourself and all that. Just tawdry stuff. And for a man who's been through 2 divorces, Donald Trump, you would think that he would appreciate the turbulence that family is undergoing. So does it have to do with politics? No, it has nothing to do with politics. Does it have to do with national security? I don't think Anthony Weiner has access to any national security information coming from Hillary Clinton. That's where I think he went over the line and suggests, as Joe Benison did, that it has to do with his own view that everything's about him. I told you so. I knew Weiner. I told you about the damage in the black community and the shootings. It's all about Trump. And at some point, I think even his most ardent supporters would say, come on, Donald, I mean, let's show a little personal empathy here.
All right, Lisa.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I think Huma Abedin is certainly a fair game in this election, but I think trying to tie all this together, and most specifically using her divorce in it as well, is a little bit of out of bounds here. There's plenty of information for him to go after Huma exclusive of the divorce. I mean, you look at the fact that she was working at the Clinton Foundation, at the State Department, and also Teneo, which was run by Doug Band, who was the Clinton Foundation official, all at the same time, which seems to have been a successful of selling access to Hillary Clinton, especially with the report today that of those 15,000 emails Hillary Clinton allegedly, all the emails that she had turned over, there was also Benghazi emails on there as well, so which she had lied about.
But Trump's point is she has access to classified material. Supposedly she left it on the car seat. She's left it other places, and somehow bringing Anthony Weiner into it.
Well, I mean, yeah, potentially in the sense that Huma did say that she had left classified information in the front seat of a travel car, I believe. So, yes, I believe in that sense that potentially there's a tie there. But I also think that if we're having to do all this explaining, then it's probably not a clean political hit. And if you look at the best political hits, there's something where you don't have to do this tying of the dots that we just did. I mean, the best political hits would be going after Huma based on the information that we already have. But the fact that information about her emails were subpoenaed by the FBI, that she was under investigation by the FBI, that she had a hand working at the State Department, the Clinton Foundation, and Teneo. So yes, let's explore her role in this, but I think let's leave the divorce out of it.
One last word.
Well, again, I think if your target here is outreach, trying to expand Donald Trump's base so that he can win this election, you're looking at a lot of people who are, first of all, consolidating Republican votes, but largely white Republican women who are on the fence about Trump and a lot of his language, and specifically about women. So for him to go after a woman at the moment of personal trouble, I don't think it's helping.
Lisa, Juan, thank you. Directly ahead, what does Donald Trump need to say in his big speech tomorrow night to gain more support from skeptical people on his promises on immigration? Stay tuned.
Whoa! You're not taking these.
You're not taking that.
Factor, the #1 cable news show for 15 years and counting.
Thanks for staying with us. I'm Brett Baer in Washington, in for Bill O'Reilly tonight. And in the Factor follow-up segment, Donald Trump's critical immigration speech tomorrow evening. What can he say to appeal to Hispanics and voters at large? Joining us now on this issue to analyze from Los Angeles, Juan Hernandez, an advisor to the Gary Johnson presidential campaign, and here in Washington, Alfonso Aguilar, executive director of the Latino Partnership for Conservative Principles. Gentlemen, thanks for being here. First to you, Juan. What about this speech? Do you expect a shift? We have seen this shift in tone. Do you expect a shift in policy from the GOP nominee?
Well, Trump is going to say that he is presenting a more humane and just immigration plan for the United States, but he always slips back into a hateful, discriminatory rhetoric. He has insulted me, he has insulted my friends, he has insulted my family members, and I won't even get into the insults for the handicapped and for women, etc. There's no way that he can win over Hispanics to him. But, you know, as Latinos today, it's so terrible because on the one hand we have the insults of a Trump, but on the other side we have the unkept promises of the Democrats. We thought that, and I worked against Obama, I worked for McCain on his campaign, but we thought that Obama really was going to push immigration reform, and he did not. Now at the end of this meeting I'm going to talk to Alfonso and tell him a little bit about Gary Johnson, try to bring him over to my side.
All right, Alfonso, let's hear your response.
Look, I appreciate Juan's perspective. I was offended by some of the comments that Mr. Trump made during the primary. But as distasteful as I may find some of his comments, I'm much more concerned with the policies of Hillary Clinton in terms of the economy, Supreme Court nominations, and that's why I'm supporting Trump. Now, on immigration, yes, he said some offensive things, but I think that we have to look at beyond some of the words and rhetoric he's used. I think from the very beginning, he said that he was open to, once people leave the country to have those who are good people, who have no criminal record, come back. Let me finish. Let those people come back in the country. I think what we may see tomorrow is Trump opening to allowing those people to regularize within the country.
Juan, some people call that touchback amnesty.
And, by the way, we're not going to let any Muslims into the country. And, by the way, we're going to kick out 11 million people and have them trickle back in somehow. And we're going to get back all of those jobs that the undocumented have taken away from us. Alfonso, he's talking about our family members. I'm sorry, brother. I've supported you so much. How can you support this man?
Because you're generalizing, and you don't speak for the entire Latino community, just like I don't speak for the entire Latino community.
For the immense majority. Trump has like 0.05%.
That's according to your poll.
Let me ask you that question. Do you think that the Hispanic, the Latino community is monolithic in the way it looks at the immigration issue?
No, of course not. If you ask us what is the most important issue, we'll probably say jobs, we'll say security, we'll say education. But, my friend, the filter is going to be immigration reform. Why? Because you're talking about familia. You're talking about the people who have a culture in which the family is so important. And by the way, I thought that was important to this nation that I would give my life for. There is
Alfonso,
no way that as a Republican, I'm a
you...
Republican, but that I can support this man.
Can Donald Trump say something, Alfonso, tomorrow that helps him with the Hispanic Latino community?
Well, absolutely. This is not about winning the Latino vote. This is about becoming more competitive with the Latino electorate in certain key battleground states that he needs to win, places like Florida. So if he can improve his numbers in states like that, he can win those states, and it's key for him to get to win, to get to the White House.
And Juan, you're saying Hillary Clinton has a problem with Latinos?
Yes, of course. But notice, my good friend Alfonso, he even says it in third person. He talks about these people, and he talks about Trump having a problem over here. Why? Because he can't even accept Trump. Now, I would like to make very clear, this is a campaign. This is a campaign. We
have to be practical in this election.
By the way, there are 3 people today. There is a Hillary who has disappointed us. She's on the line of corruption. We have a Trump, and we have a Gary Johnson, who, by the way, will keep his promises and will pass an immigration reform.
And won't get to the White House.
Gentlemen, gracias.
Thank you.
When we come back, new polling shows Hillary Clinton losing ground to Donald Trump. Is a Trump surge in the making? We'll look at the polls. Back in a moment. Tonight, the state of the presidential race. In the Real Clear Politics average of recent national polls, Hillary Clinton leads Donald Trump by a little more than 4%. Clinton has 42.2%. Trump's at 37.9%. As you see there, it's a 4-way contest. Libertarian Gary Johnson has just under 8%. Green Party nominee Jill Stein has just over 3%. So are any trends emerging as we are just 69 days until Election Day? Joining us now to analyze from New York, Philip Bump, politics writer at the Washington Post, and here in Washington, Heidi Presbella, senior political reporter at USA Today. Thanks for being here. Heidi, first to you. State of the race. We heard Kellyanne Conway, Trump campaign manager, at the beginning of the show, kind of paint the picture that she sees. And basically she said trailing, closing the gap, especially in battleground states.
Well, she's right. What we're starting to see is that some of these stratospheric numbers that Hillary Clinton had directly after the Democratic convention are coming back down to earth and back to where you'd expect them to be, which is a closer race. That said, the fundamentals of what Trump needs to do are still the same, which is that he needs to take those states the Mitt Romney won in 2012 and expand off of that. So the challenge for them is that he is not at this point doing that in the polls. As a matter of fact, it's uncertain that he will even be able to hold some of those Romney states.
So Philip, the question is it more important for Donald Trump to consolidate Republicans or to reach out to another, more independents or more moderate Democrats who are disaffected by their choice in Hillary Clinton?
At this point, it's much more important that he consolidate the Republican base. One of the reasons that we've seen him trailing in polls nationally and in various states is that more Democrats support Hillary Clinton than Republicans support Donald Trump. And there are a lot of reasons for that. And I think that at some point the question is, can he actually consolidate them? I think that he probably still has that door open. Republican voters are more regular voters than Democratic voters, and so it seems likely he may be able to pull some of them back in. But it's a question mark. He's shown that he has this core base of support. The real question over the course of the general election has been, can he expand that outward? And so far he hasn't been able to, even within his own party.
Heidi, it really comes down to battleground states, roughly 10 states. And while the national number could be 4 or 5 point lead, if you look at Electoral College, that could be a big lead for Hillary Clinton. So he's got to change the dynamic.
Right, because, like, for example, you look at Florida, that's a state that Obama took by only 1 point, and there she's up 4 or 5 points on him. So there could also be a big lead in terms of the popular vote. But his strategy from the beginning has been to kind of go through these Rust Belt states, and that is where the real problem is that even if he starts to narrow nationally the lead in those specific states, she's got a big lead on him. Like a Pennsylvania poll out today shows her up 8 points. So if you're just going by electoral votes, you got to focus on, just like you said, just those states. And in those states that he sees as his path to victory, she's still up on him in Michigan. She's up on him in Pennsylvania. And under that scenario, even if let's say he took Ohio and Florida, where, by the way, she's also up on him, like I said, in Florida, he still doesn't get to 270.
Yeah, I mean, we should point out, Philip, that Trump supporters are adamant. They say that there are other people that are not factored into these polls. They think that the polls are off. Let's just say they're off 3-4 points. You're still looking at a scenario where she's leading slightly. He has to change the dynamic. Is the debate, the first debate, the way he does that?
So, I mean, it's one of the few opportunities he has left, I think, to get a big audience and actually change their minds. I mean, I think it's important to note, of the 10 closest states in 2012, right now Hillary Clinton leads in all 10 of those by an average of 6.5 points. So, I mean, this is a stark picture that's being painted here. He really has to seize on these debates in order to be able to change what's happening, because so far nothing he's tried has really worked.
All right, Heidi, Phillips, stay with us. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to talk about the debates, an inside look at what Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are doing to prep for the presidential debates. The first one, September 26th. We'll see you right here on Fox moments away. Back, we continue our discussion now with USA Today's Heidi Presbella and Washington Post Philip Bump. Let's turn now to how Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are gearing up for the presidential debates. This is a piece in Vanity Fair just out. Trump campaign staffers have put together briefing books, the Washington Post reports, but the candidate has hardly looked at them. Quote, "I believe you can prep too much for those things," Trump recently told the New York Times, suggesting that reviewing policy or conducting mock debates might jeopardize his blustery authenticity. It can be dangerous. You can sound scripted or phony, like you're trying to be someone you're not. Whether the billionaire is being strategic or merely lazy, Trump has rejected nearly all pretense of conventional debate prep. This, Trump's newly appointed campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway, insists is a deliberate strategy and one the Trump campaign is proud to support. What about this, Heidi?
Certain amount of truth to that, having looked at how he performed in the primary debates, right? He's an agile performer. He's spontaneous. He wants her to come off as looking rehearsed and him to come off looking like he's the authentic person. But this is going to be a very different setup, Brett. As you know, he was on a very crowded stage with a bunch of mostly other alpha males. In this case, there's a very different dynamic. He's on stage with one person who is preparing overtime to hammer him on substance. And that is Hillary Clinton's goal going into this. She's going to try to bait him. She's going to try to bait him on temperament. She's going to try to bait him on substance. Remember the nuclear triad? I guarantee you she's going to try to come up with something similar to that on substance to say, aha, there you go, Donald Trump, he's not knowledgeable about these things. He's not knowledgeable about policy. So there is also a certain risk that he's taking in not hitting those books.
Yeah, you know, Kellyanne Conway, Philip says he is hitting the books, and he's going to be in coming days ahead of the first debate. But to Heidi's point, Fox is also confirming that the Hillary Clinton campaign is pulling out all kinds of stops to try to needle him on a number of fronts, even having psychiatrists look at what he reacts to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that we've seen Hillary Clinton before. I mean, even during her convention speech, she made a comment about how he couldn't be fairly easy to goad into things, and I think that's exactly what they're thinking about. I think it's important to notice how closely this echoes his campaigning, though. He won the primary by being himself, by getting this core base of support and not changing what he was doing, and that's sort of the attitude he seems to be taking to the debate. I know what I'm doing. I've been in there and I've done this before, without recognizing once again that the audience has changed. That's why he's not doing as well in general election polling, because he hasn't changed to adapt to a new electorate. And I think that one of the risks they may run is him not changing his debate style to this new type of debate, which has a very, very different audience.
But as we've seen in debates in the past, little events can change the whole trajectory of the thing. If you look back to Ronald Reagan, there you go again. You look back to the moment when H.W. Bush looked at his watch. Little moments can change the whole thing.
And that's where there's also a risk in this for Hillary Clinton, too, is because she does come off as so overly scripted that if he gets her in a moment, or if she goes a little bit overboard and looks smug, remember the Al Gore eye roll? Something like that can be very damaging. So we can't predict what that moment may be, but there's risks to both of the strategies. But in Hillary Clinton's case, I think she's betting that he's going to be more apt to do something that hurts himself rather than helps.
Quick final word, Philip.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And I think it's important to remember that the most effective attack during the Republican debates was when Chris Christie went after Marco Rubio. Donald Trump did not really do that great, and the polls didn't really reinforce that he did that well in debates either. So we'll have to see how he does this time.
Philip, Heidi, thank you very much. It's interesting. Again, the first one, September 26th at Hofstra in New York. That is it for us tonight from Washington. Thanks for watching The O'Reilly Factor. I'm Brett Baer, in for Bill O'Reilly. I'll keep it fair, balanced, and unafraid down here in Washington. Please remember, as Bill says, the spin stops here because we're looking out for you.